Thank you, Ian, and good morning, everybody. As you say, I think that poem's quite a tough act to follow, pretty powerful stuff. But I think a great reminder of that emotional and personal role played by radio, something that I think's really come to the fore over the last couple of years, especially during lockdowns and hard times that people have experienced. And I know that Radiocentre has looked at this in various ways through our research and our reports. We did a report called Force for Good a couple of years ago, looking at radio public service impact, and a study called the Emotional Multiplier, which I think Lucy referenced earlier, which found audiences are significantly happier and more energised when listening to the radio, which is also, I think, something we can all relate to and understand. And so I'm delighted anyway today to be joined by two brilliant guests based here in Manchester, to talk about a study that Bauer Media carried out in 2021, which covered some of the similar territory as that, and looked particularly at the impact of radio's connection with audiences and its effectiveness with advertisers. So welcome to Hattie Pearson from Hits Radio, and to Trevor Jordan from Bauer, Head of Creative at Bauer. Trevor, I think you're going to talk us through some of the headlines from the research, but in a nutshell, I gather it looked at both radio and magazines.
Yes.
And examined the effectiveness of those as marketing channels and how they work together. Do you want to tell us a bit more about how you did it?
Yeah, so we've got the IPA Effective Database that's been going along for 40-odd years, and that analyses the kind of effectiveness of advertising campaigns, which is a really, really good database. So what we've gone and done at Bauer is we've delved deep into that, and then we've kind of like extrapolated the kind of radio and magazines side of that to create this impact study, to really kind of show how, making sure that when you're kind of pulling a campaign together, that radio and magazines work really, really well together. That's how it started. The good news for us is you can break out the radio bit on its own. Yes. Don't worry about the magazines, it's not a problem.
So for radio advertising in particular, what were the sort of main findings that you got from the study?
Well, I think everybody kind of already knows that traditionally, radio is great for brand impact, for brand awareness and all of that lot. It's got really, really strong metrics that kind of really deliver where it needs to be. The impact study that actually we found was that it's not just the top and bottom that people kind of focus on in radio. There's the whole kind of funnel. Now, it could be a funnel, so that whole purchase intent funnel and stuff like that. If Kate hadn't legged it from Wavemaker, she would be having a go at me because it should be a circle, she says. It could be a funnel, it can be a treble clef if you want it to be. But we're going to go with funnel on this one. But what that really, really shows is that radio is effective throughout the funnel. It's not just the top and bottom, which is where most people kind of focus in on. We really, really excel within the middle of the funnel.
And what do you mean by that middle?
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. I've got a visual now. Okay, here we go. Here's my funnel, all right?
It looks great.
Doesn't it? Wonderful funnel. So, when it comes to radio, brand awareness, pretty much all marketeers, you're tip-top, you're good, you understand that radio gives you brand awareness, that longevity, that kind of high frequency, that delivery, all of that, radio tick box does what it does. Same kind of at the bottom, radio delivers loyalty, advocacy. It also delivers that call to action and that purchase intent. So you know that's what radio is. It's the bit in the middle that there's kind of like thinned focus on, because radio is so much more than just getting people in and telling them to buy something and pushing them out the other side. That bit in the middle is what we officially now call the missing middle. There you go. Welcome to radio. If you can target those middle bits, that is great for building brand recognition. It's great for building the kind of best brand outcome you can get from your advertisers. And not many people really, really go for it. They kind of, airtime is the top bit and airtime does the bottom bit. It's that middle bit, which is the world that I love to live in, the middle, missing middle, which is where you can really, really make your campaign sing to the audience, make it connect with the audience.
So you've identified that sort of part, and you've identified the strategy, but radio's particular role within that is something that sort of is particularly effective.
It is. Radio is great. You welcome radio into your life. It's that invisible person that, the listener welcomes.
Don't call me invisible.
Babes, I'm still not invisible. Okay, you live in a box most of the time, but that's fine. But it is, consciously or unconsciously, Hattie and our brands become their friends, become their people they connect with, that they use for that mood-enhancing moment, for that whole kind of way of bringing radio and audio and broadcasting alive in their home, in their environment, in their moment of their oneness, if that kind of makes sense. And what we're able to kind of do with all of this is really, really drive how Hattie and the brands connect with it. So, interestingly, if anybody knows me, I'm rubbish at numbers, okay? So I had to have these put on a slide because I'd never remember them otherwise. So what we've kind of found out, if you just break out radio in this study, that we can really, really drive trust and quality perceptions. The metrics are really, really improved if you target that missing middle. That missing middle is brand relevance, consideration, that real kind of like customers' hearts and minds moments. And you can change that by kind of picking those bits out and really, really driving that and creating that brand fame that where people really engage with the radio and the advertising side of it as well. So trust can go up by 30%. Impact on perceptions of quality, 92%. If you've invited somebody into your house and you sit with them and they sit with you, invisible or non-invisible, dear, and they tell you to do something or they allude to something, they recommend something, whatever that is, you are going to trust them because you've invited somebody who is quality into your life and therefore you are happy to understand their viewpoint. It has a great effect on market share. When you tie all of these bits in, the simplest analogy, if you just go with a couple of Lego blocks, you're going to end up with a cube. Okay? But if you start building in more Lego blocks of the kind of like building up your campaign, making your campaign bigger, doing lots of different things, you might end up with Hogwarts. And that is kind of how the kind of impact on market share can really, really work for you if you layer up your kind of radio campaign to make sure that it targets all those tick points that where the audience will get more out of it. Great one for all agencies and all advertisers. Return on investment from this campaign shows a 10% increase in return of investment. And that has a knock-on effect of 34% increase in profits. So when you do kind of pull all these bits together and really, really target that perception, that consideration moment, it is all about emotion. It's how you bring all of that together. And I think, you speak to people and what they love about the radio is that companionship, is that kind of emotional thing. It can make you feel better. It can uplift your mood. However that is, radio has a really, really strong way of doing that. And people like Hattie are the reason. It's not just music. It's what happens in between that music. Yeah. And Hattie, you're amazing at what you do. You are.
Thanks.
But it must be really difficult because you've got so many different things that you have to kind of piece together as a show. How do you, I always get really kind of kerfuddled. It's like I'm as a salesperson, as a creative, whatever, I give you stuff and you've got to kind of turn that into something. I suppose that kind of leads slightly into your kind of question. Matt, I've stolen
question
it.
is just, I'm just thinking as I go
whatever.
along. I haven't stayed. Yeah, no. But I think look, that impact on trust, the perception, the emotional sort of value of radio and the connection, and that's where the presenters absolutely come in. You're like a sort of friend in the room to those listeners. So why do you think it is audiences have that connection, and how have you experienced it?
I think it's exactly that. It's a one-to-one relationship. When I first started out in radio, you always kind of get told that you should speak to you as an individual. You shouldn't say, hey, you lot, hey, you guys. And I think when you talk to that one person, they feel like they've got a connection. And it's about being authentic as a presenter. I will talk about different things in my life than Tom, who does mid-mornings, or Jordan, who does the evening show, or Gemma or Mike, because we all have different experiences. So people know that I'll talk about my dogs or about, something that's, I'm quite clumsy. So like things that happen that I'm like, oh God, only Hattie would do that. And I think then people kind of understand who you are as a personality and they buy into that. And you build those connections on a one-to-one basis, really. And it's very much about having those conversations as as a friend, the kind of thing that you would sit down at a pub and just say, oh, this happened last night. It was, this was a bit daft, or that happened. And people just feel like they kind of get to know you and build that relationship with you.
Are there sort of specific examples that you can think of where you thought, you felt that connection with the audience and you just thought, this is why I'm in radio, this is why I do this job and why I love it?
Yeah, and I think often there can be things that happen, like, on an ad hoc basis. There was something the other week? Like, you won't necessarily put out like a text to like text in because of this. I can't even think what it was. But people sometimes just react to what you say. I said, so yesterday, for example, I was just mentioned that HP Sauce are taking the scaffolding off the label of HP Sauce because Big Ben now doesn't have the scaffolding. And somebody just texted in being like, who likes brown sauce anyway? People just, it's like that connected because I was talking about brown sauce.
And they're thinking about it. And
yeah,
it back
exactly. So I think, sometimes you just get a reaction from something that you're not even expecting. Like sometimes you can have a big feature and you think this is going to really work and then it falls a bit flat, and then other times it can just something you might say, you might have framed a sentence in the right way and it kind of goes with it. But I think the kind of coming back to something I did want to talk about was Cash for Kids, which is Bauer's charity partner that we support young people around, all across the UK with all of our brands. And I think for when you kind of get those live reads, like within the show that you have to talk about a specific thing, it's about building that and making it personal. All the presenters get sent exactly the same script. Now, obviously, if we're all reading the same script every day in every show, it's going to become tedious, and the listeners, the audience, aren't going to respond to that. So it's about finding a way to make that authentic to you. And with the campaign that just finished a couple of weeks ago, it was for Global Recycling Day about recycling clothes. And so then for every ton of clothes that was recycled, Cash for Kids got £400. So the way that I was kind of doing that was, I buy a lot of secondhand clothes. I sell clothes on Depop and eBay and stuff. And so I was like, actually, it's a good way to get rid of your old crap that you don't want and do a bit of good in the process. Whereas I know that, Tom, for example, would have sold that in a very different way. Yeah. So it's when you do get those bits of content about how to make it real to you and engage on that level.
Yeah. I think we've also got an example of, I know you do the cash register competitions as well in the afternoon, and the emotional reactions to that are something else, quite a range. Yeah. I think we've got that as well. It'd be quite good to run that quickly.
Oh, thank God! Oh my God, are you lying? Are you lying? Are you lying?
No. Oh my God.
Oh my God!
Oh, that's amazing, thank you so much.
Well, I can help our family.
That's amazing, thank you.
Never in my life would I have ever dreamed of anything like this.
That's brilliant. I think it really brings it to life in terms of real people just reacting in a very human way.
Yeah, and again with that, often I'll get listeners. Obviously, some people enter every day. Like even yesterday, the woman said, "I've entered every day since the competition began." 4 years ago? Or something. Hello, phone bill. No one make money on it. But then there's people often text that haven't one saying. Actually, yesterday it was exactly that. Somebody texted in saying, "Oh, I just want to reach down the phone and give Mandy a hug," and it was like that's exactly the thing that you're creating those stories and those moments, and especially for that, it's a milestone kind of on my show.
So, I mean, I'm just conscious of time, Trevor, with this clock ticking away.
Yes, I noticed, sorry.
Here. But in terms of commercial clients and how this relationship plays out, maybe just quickly some examples on that.
For us, there's a great example for KFC. So KFC sponsor the drive time on KISS across the UK, which is really, really great. We've got Tyler West doing that. And yes, great, top bar, high frequency, driving awareness. But it was those bits in the middle. How do you make KFC work better on KISS? So we did a couple of things, which was when we were in lockdown, we basically, you remember, all the students were in halls, sticking notes saying, help, save us, and all of that lot. So what we did was get them to kind of get in contact with KISS. We would then supply them and deliver them KFC. So they could have the great taste of KFC that they couldn't go to the stores because they were closed, and we can have that delivered to them at the halls. We've done some great bits and bobs as well, where we've had Tyler literally doing a chicken off with the manager of the Waterloo branch of KFC, who can name as many things on the menu fastest. Brilliant. So the next time you walk past a KFC menu, you'll go, oh my God, that was Tom, whatever. And then we've also gone and done the best feature, and if you work creatively, you'll know name came first. What the feature was, we didn't have a clue about, which was clock off, it's Friday. And we loved that, brilliant. And that's time's up, all right.
Thank you, brilliant. Look, I think some of those examples are great, and I think they show that sort of flexibility of radio as well, don't they? They're sort of going beyond the spot, but also the different kinds of messaging that can do that flexibility and that sort of light and shade as well.